Greetings, fellow gamers. I'm the Soulsborne Seeker, and today I'll be reviewing Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, a retro-styled gothic horror action platforming title developed by Inti Creates and released back in 2018 for PC, PS4, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS Vita, as well as the Nintendo 3DS. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is a companion title to the incredibly well-received Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, a Metroidvania game that has gone down in history as one of the most successful Kickstarter campaigns of all time for a video game, which came as no surprise since its creator was none other than Koji Igarashi himself, a man whose name has become synonymous with some of the most successful Castlevania games, including Symphony of the Night. Curse of the Moon was revealed as a stretch goal for said campaign and was unlocked once the Kickstarter funding reached $4.5 million, at which point it was solidified as reality. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon was conceived as a tribute to some of the original 8-bit Castlevania games of the Nintendo Entertainment System era, most notably Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse, and aimed to recapture the essence of those classics while at the same time bringing modern sensibilities into the formula to make the game approachable and fun for a newer generation of players. The game follows Zangetsu, a swordsman who's been cursed by demons. Swearing revenge, he embarks on a quest to eradicate the creatures responsible for his malediction. On his way, he comes across a group of unlikely allies, and together they take the fight to the abominations that plague their world. There's really not much depth to the story, but in my humble opinion, that's not something that works against the game, since the whole point of the title lies in its gameplay rather than its lore. That being said, there has been a lot of discussion on whether Curse of the Moon is a prequel to Ritual of the Night, since it takes place a decade before the events of the main game, or if it's a spin-off series. My take on this is that Curse of the Moon is a separate story to the main canon, since during your playthrough you will come across many of the characters and bosses you meet in Ritual of the Night, and it would make no sense for this to be a prequel since your relationships with them evolve differently than the way they do in the main game, which leads me to think that Curse of the Moon simply takes place in a parallel universe and is meant as a spin-off. Now, in terms of the setting, Curse of the Moon does not feature an open map, but is instead divided into 8 separate stages, each one taking place in a different area as you journey across the world on your way to the final battle. If you have already played Ritual of the Night, most of the characters, enemies, and areas you will come across will definitely be familiar to you. But I found that enjoyable since they are utilized in slightly different ways in terms of area exploration, enemy attack patterns, as well as character personalities, which kept me from feeling like I've done this before. The one thing that kind of disappointed me in relation to the game's world is that there really wasn't much of an exploratory aspect to it. There definitely were a few secret upgrades for you to find, and you could take different routes across each stage depending on the character you were utilizing, but the majority of hidden rooms I found didn't have anything worthwhile in them aside from basic items I could also find on my regular way across each stage. Gameplay-wise, Curse of the Moon is an action platformer through and through, and thankfully it does what it's meant to do well. The focus of the title is on combat and platforming segments, and if you've ever played some of the older classics from which it draws inspiration, you'll feel right at home. As you progress through the story, you will be given the choice of having additional characters accompany you, each with their own strengths and weaknesses, and I have to say I found everyone intriguing to play with in their own way. On a fundamental level, every character has a different basic attack as well as a unique special ability that you can use at the cost of weapon points, which you can replenish by picking up blue urns that drop from enemies and broken candle holders in true Castlevania fashion. I really liked the fact that you could switch between characters at will, which allowed for a strategic approach in combat as well as environmental traversal. For example, Jeeble and Alfred were more utilitarian in their tactics, with the former being able to transform into a bat and fly across difficult platforming segments with ease, and the latter placing a lot of focus on defensive capabilities, while both of them working at their best as ranged combatants. On the other hand, Zangetsu and Miriam were more battle-focused, featuring larger health bars as well as increased damage capabilities. As mentioned previously, their different skills and movesets also allowed you to proceed through a stage by taking different routes as well, though I didn't really find a lot of purpose on that aside from maybe avoiding some challenging platforming segments by taking an easier, albeit more hidden path. Speaking about platforming, I found this aspect of the game to be fun and relatively painless, though there were some areas that took more out of me than others to get through. On that note, I do want to bring to your attention the fact that Curse of the Moon is meant to emulate classic titles of the genre with both the positives and the negatives that brings. The developers truly did an amazing job in terms of modernizing certain aspects of the visuals, for example by providing larger and clearer sprites as well as featuring a more evolved parallax effect for the backgrounds. But there are certain remnants from those past games which could be considered frustrating. For one thing, there aren't any actual physics present in the game, which can lead to unexpected deaths. As an example, if you step off a ledge, your character will simply drop down a straight line without you being able to control the momentum and direction of the descent at all, which leads to certain doom most of the time. It can also sometimes become difficult to jump and tilt left or right unless you had been running in the direction of the jump in the first place, which can make some platforming aspects a bit irritating. I also found myself a few times accidentally going up staircases when I was actually trying to move past them or even move away from them, which led to some jarring instances. As someone who grew up with such games, these issues didn't really bother me that much, but I can see them being a point of frustration for newer players. On the topic of bosses, most of the big bads you will face in Curse of the Moon are the same as the ones you fight in Ritual of the Night. That being said, I was surprised to find myself having more fun in some of the boss fights here than I did in the main game, mainly because I found their attack patterns to be more imaginative and their design to be a bit more detailed. I would have definitely wanted to see more original villains, but I still liked what I got. In terms of difficulty, the game features two different levels, casual and veteran, depending on how hard you want to make things for you. As a casual gamer, you will get to play through the stages with infinite lives and no knockback from damage, which will allow you to have fun while still getting a challenge out of things. As a veteran, you have limited lives and get knocked back when being hit, which makes things considerably harder. When it comes to length, the game is relatively short but benefits from multiple playthroughs if you want to see all the different endings, as well as some additional interesting biomes. Each playthrough took me about an hour and a half to complete on casual difficulty, and you will definitely want to beat the game at least 3 times to get the most out of it. Aside from the main story, you also get to eventually unlock Boss Rush mode, for an added layer of challenge. For a price of $10, I'd say you're getting decent value for your money, though the game also gets steep discounts frequently if you don't feel like paying that much for it. Overall, I truly enjoyed my time with Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. I had a lot of fun with the platforming and combat aspects of the game, I really liked the bosses, and I appreciated the replayability value it offered. I would have wanted to see a bit more in terms of exploration, and I would have also loved for the game to have been lengthier, but what was offered by the developers was a true nostalgia gem, with every bit of content in it being a loving homage to the giants that set the foundation for the Metroidvania genre to be born. If you grew up with the Castlevania classics, Curse of the Moon is a title that's guaranteed to offer you a quality experience that will hit you with nostalgic waves abundant, though it doesn't do much to push the genre to new horizons. If you never played those games, there is still a great action platformer to be enjoyed here, but I do believe that the nostalgia aspect is a fundamental part of this title for someone to fully appreciate it. My final verdict on Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is 7.5 out of 10. What did you think about Bloodstained Curse of the Moon? Have you played it yet? Do you agree with the points I mentioned, or do you see things differently? Let me know in the comments below, and please subscribe if you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, Soulsborne Seeker out.